I don't know. I want him to be able to buy it. I think the best way to get it is to buy it.
Lee, why bring up Greenland?
And we want things like healthcare and education and new roads and bridges and those kind of things. And we're going to spend, what, $700 billion to buy an island that isn't for sale?
Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you love the work we do here, consider subscribing to the channel. Man, I swear we live in the weirdest timeline. Because here we go again. Trump and the whole Greenland thing. And the way this gets framed is always like, ooh, bold strategy, big brain geopolitics. No, this is ego. This is vibes. This is a guy treating foreign policy like a real estate negotiation he wants to win for bragging rights. And now we've got this insane little thread where it's like, if I don't get my Nobel Peace Prize, fine, I'll take an island. Are you kidding me? That's not leadership. That's a tantrum with nukes in the background. So today we're breaking down what's actually being said, how the defenders twist themselves into pretzels, and why normal people get screwed when priorities are this warped. If you're as exhausted as I am, hit subscribe, seriously, so we can keep calling this nonsense out together.
You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get Greenland. Tonight, the president himself is telling the Prime Minister of Norway that in part, if he can't have the Nobel Peace Prize, at least one that he actually won himself, he wants Greenland. He made the link himself in an actual text to the actual Norwegian Prime Minister. In it, he blames that country for not winning the Nobel. He claims he stopped 8 wars and added that he no longer feels obligated to think purely of peace because of the snub. He went on to, again, question Denmark's ability to protect Greenland and ended by writing, "The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of it." The backdrop, of course, is Trump's near obsession with the Nobel Prize.
They will never give me a Nobel Peace Prize. Do I deserve the Nobel Peace?
If you catch a great peace.
Well, maybe for the Abraham Accords. They gave it to Obama for doing absolutely nothing but destroying our country. I should get the Nobel Prize for every war, but I don't want to be greedy. I can't think of anybody in history that should get the Nobel Prize more than me.
So Norway's prime minister responded by reminding Trump that an independent committee awards the Nobel Peace Prize, not the Norwegian government. Over the weekend, Trump escalated his takeover bid by threatening new tariffs on European allies until a Greenland deal is reached. And in a new phone interview with NBC, the president again refused to take U.S. military intervention off the table as a means to get his way. Joining us now in our fifth seat, Suzanne Nossel, a senior fellow at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. And friends, Cameron, let me just start with you. I mean, who among us hasn't lost a peace prize and demanded an island?
Well, Trump is being very transparent about what he wants here, and he did the same in Venezuela. In Venezuela, he said this was about oil. And with Greenland, he's saying this is a personal grievance for which I am threatening military action. And he's basically playing risk because people hurt his feelings, or people ostensibly hurt his feelings. So I am appreciative that the president is being transparent about this. I would love it if he was more transparent about the human sex trafficking network that he was a part of, but you can't win them all.
Cameron's grateful that the president is being transparent about the Nobel Peace Prize and his desires for Greenland. Scott, what do you think about that?
You going to let that sit? Are we going to claim here on CNN that the president is part of a global sex trafficking ring? Or,
well, man, okay, deep breath. Because the second you hear the actual Nobel to Greenland connection, your brain starts buffering. Like, wait, did he really text the Norwegian prime minister basically saying, if I don't get my Peace Prize, I'm taking an island? Allegedly linking a personal award snub to territorial ambition is not strategy. That's a mood swing with nuclear codes. And then the justification is he stopped 8 wars, so now he's no longer obligated to think purely of peace. Bro, that is not how diplomacy works. That's not how being an adult works. And the Norway response is the funniest, bleakest part, like, sir, we don't even pick the Nobel. And he's still like, no, you totally control it. So Greenland isn't policy here, it's ego. And when ego drives foreign policy, people pay for it.
We're going to talk about the Epstein file. Scott, I will do the fact checking as we go along here. Repeat what you said about the global sex trafficking ring.
That Donald Trump was provably very involved with it.
Okay, we'll get to that later. I mean, Donald Trump has never been charged with any crimes in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. But
let's be adults here.
We'll talk about that.
Let's be serious.
Satisfied? Now answer the question about Greenland. Do you think the president's desire now for Greenland in his text to the Norwegian prime minister reveals perhaps something about Donald Trump?
Well, it is true that the government of Norway doesn't award the Nobel Peace Prize. That's true. It's also true that he would very much like to get one. It's also true that he probably deserves one. So all of those things are true. I also think that he very much wants Greenland for national security reasons. He has stated this time and again. He's worried about Russia. He's worried about China. He's worried about protecting this island. It is a vital area. They have critical minerals. We already have a military base there. We're already obligated to protect it anyway. He doesn't believe that Denmark can adequately protect it. So he's got an idea that it would be better under U.S. control. So did Harry S. Truman. So did Secretary of State William Seward. This has been an island that has been recognized by American presidents and diplomats for 150 years that it would be a good idea for us to control. We bought stuff from Denmark before, the Virgin Islands. So it's not unusual for us to engage in these kinds of transactions. Whether this text exchange helps him get to a deal to buy it, I don't know. I want him to be able to buy it. I think the best way to get it is to buy it.
Lee, why bring up Greenland then? I mean, why bring up the Nobel Peace Prize?
And then, hold on, let me stop right there, because this is where the defenders do that Olympic-level backbend. Scott Jennings jumps in with the national security cape like he's auditioning for a Pentagon commercial, and I'm supposed to pretend the Nobel tantrum text didn't happen? Yes, Greenland matters strategically. Everyone knows the Arctic is heating up. Russia and China are sniffing around. We've already got a U.S. base there. Cool. But that's exactly why this "we must own it" thing is so freaking unserious. We already have access. We already cooperate. You negotiate. You don't start hinting at tariffs and military options because your feelings got dinged. And speaking of priorities, are we really doing this buy an island fantasy while people are rationing insulin, drowning in medical bills, and watching schools crumble? Come on. It's always big, loud symbolism, and zero help for regular people.
It's about this well thought out Truman-esque process, as Scott is suggesting, to get the island. Why say, and I was snubbed for the Nobel Peace Prize?
First of all, Donald Trump is being transparent about what he wants. He wants a Nobel Peace Prize because he wants what he wants when he wants it. He's being a brat. And as a mother, I'm telling you, this is a boy that's never been told no. And this doesn't belong to you. To Scott, I would say Greenland's not for sale. That's nice that America wants to buy it. They have said, we're not for sale. We do not want to be bought. The people in Denmark are saying, we're not selling it. So I don't know why we keep talking about it like America's the biggest boy in the room and we have the most money and we'll come in here and take it. And I would also say, if it is for sale, where are they getting the $700 billion they're suggesting they're buying it from? Because that would come from the American taxpayer. And we want things like healthcare and education and new roads and bridges and those kind of things. And we're going to spend, $700 billion to buy an island that isn't for sale? I think it's ludicrous. I think we're acting like the biggest brat. We look terrible on the world stage. And if you're part of NATO and then you start acting like you're not going to back up NATO, you're going to actually take things from them, then it makes us look terrible. And it's just poor leadership.
Talk about the world stage, Suzanne.
Yeah, look, nobody is in disagreement that Greenland is a strategic island, that we have interests there, that the protection of U.S. and European national security is implicated in Greenland. But we have all the access we need. I mean, the reason we did a deal with Denmark to put bases there, to put U.S. troops there, is because they recognize that. And they're willing to expand that deal, to renegotiate it, to give the U.S. the rights that it may need to implement if Trump wants to and is able to, a version of the Iron Dome that would protect the United States and North America. So the idea that we have to have complete control, he's admitted it's a psychological need that he has, not a need that is driven by U.S. national interest. He said that to a New York Times reporter. And so the cost that this is exacting, extorting the Europeans, threatening to impose these tariffs that now have Europe on edge, looking at a complete withdrawal and breakdown of the NATO alliance, the most successful alliance in world history that has lasted for, now nearly 80 years. That is an appalling cost to pay, price to pay for the American people for a kind of flight of fancy that's ego-driven. He admits that. I think it's great he's owned up to it because we can then size him up. But the Nobel Peace Prize is not a participation trophy. This is not something that you're entitled to because you stomp your feet.
And just one last thing on the Nobel Prize. This is what he told NBC today. Of course, even after Norway told him they're not the ones who pick it. Norway totally controls it despite what they say he told NBC News. They like to say they have nothing to do with it, but they have everything to do with it, the president added. And then he goes on to say, I don't care about the Nobel Prize. There's a pretty strange way of saying you don't care.
John, I would agree with the president. He, quite frankly, doesn't care about the Nobel Peace Prize.
What evidence do you have? Is there any evidence you have?
I do.
Okay, hold on. Because this is where the LOL Greenland circus turns into the oh crap national security problem. And it's not the island, it's the tactic. You start threatening tariffs and hinting at military force over something Denmark and Greenland have literally said isn't for sale, and you're not projecting strength, you're broadcasting instability. That's what authoritarians do, turn every disagreement into a dominance contest. Pathetic. And speaking of priorities, yeah, we already have all the access we need, according to experts and, reality. We've got bases, agreements, NATO frameworks. But no, Trump world needs complete and total control because ego demands a trophy. Greenland as a consolation prize for a Nobel snub? Are you kidding me? Meanwhile, Americans are rationing insulin and drowning in bills, and the plan is to pick a fight with allies for vibes. Drop a comment. How is this leadership?
Wait a second. We all were quiet when everyone was talking. If he did care so much about it, he would have stopped on this 8 times victory that he's had in playing in global affairs and stopping conflicts around the world. I know some people at this table may not agree, but the president has, in fact, utilized his place as a leader of the free world to stop conflicts around the world. And I would disagree with the point you made earlier. We just heard 2 people at this table refer to the president as a brat and conflated him removing a murderous dictator, which hundreds of thousands of people from Venezuela who call America home now cheered on and agreed with. That's what we just conflated what the president is doing, which I agree with Scott, is a national security, as you said yourself, strategic move. And if we don't get it, our near-peer enemies, Russia and China, absolutely have the same exact thought in mind that they want Greenland. I think the president doesn't care about this Nobel Peace Prize business.
He just said he's the one who wrote. If he doesn't care about it, why did he bring it up? If he didn't care about it, why did he write the Norwegian prime minister and say, "I'm linking the Nobel Prize to my desire for Greenland"?
States, and I'll remind you, is the first president of the United States in contemporary history to not put us into a long-term land conflict around the world, and has played in 8 different conflicts around the world as his position leader of the free world and stopped conflicts from around the world. So I don't think he cares as much as he's saying, sure, I'm deserving because I've done things more than what people have done and gotten it for much less.
Wait, so if Russia is one of our enemies, do you agree with the president's decision to invite Vladimir Putin onto the peace board for Gaza?
So now you don't want the president to negotiate.
That's not what he said. He asked you a question
What
about
on
Russia.
earth are you talking about? Do you believe that Vladimir Putin, a war criminal like Netanyahu and Trump, should be on the peace board for Gaza?
I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. You're conflating world leaders.
Because you don't have an answer,
Why not?
sir.
Of course I do have an answer, but that's ridiculous. To conflate the things that you're talking about into one bucket is absolutely ridiculous, and it's not deserving.
It is a bucket. It's called
the
war
larger
criminals.
question is really whether there's a strategic interest to be so heavy-handed to put the NATO alliance at risk for U.S. domination over this territory when we have a long history of working with the Danes, working with the Europeans to use the territory as needed. They've said, we're open to what else may be needed, what you may need to base or headquarter there, what technologies you may need to bring in. So why disrupt the whole global order in order to get single-handed U.S. control when it's clear the Greenlanders don't want that, the Europeans don't want that, the rest of the world sees that as an incredibly intrusive, disruptive move that undercuts the rule of law and the norm against the use of force. So what is the purpose? What can be achieved by kind of blowing up the whole system just to get single-handed control? There isn't a logic there.
One of the things that the Wall Street Journal was reporting earlier is that the vice president did host all of these countries that are involved, and they had a healthy conversation. They created a working group to talk about this. I think if the president does go after the island, he will utilize, it's my hope that he will utilize all of the correct avenues and approach with NATO and members of Congress and those types of things. Look, I'll be honest, in my opinion, I don't agree with weaponizing tariffs for this purpose. I don't agree with that. But I think the president will use the diplomatic channels and the proper ways about going acquiring Greenland when the time comes.
No one's actually objecting to that. I mean, I think everyone's saying,
well, I think there's 2 people at this table who are absolutely neglecting
if there can be a give and take, if we can come to terms with the Danes and we need greater access, so be it. And the Europeans
that would be diplomacy, which I think I would be totally for. What we're doing here now is not diplomacy.
Actually,
it's biggest guy in the room will take what he wants when he wants, and that seems to be a Donald Trump.
Can I